All right, everybody, and we're live back in the garage because there's some people in the house today. Welcome to episode 3, recapping Buffalo's valiant effort, and I say that sarcastically, in week 1 against the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets. And I want to start by saying this episode is sponsored by Rainstorm. It's clean energy. It's a new product that they've made. It comes in a smaller can than the normal 16 ounces. And if you haven't tried it yet, I like Harvest Grape. And there's also an orange flavor, a peach flavor, and I can't remember the fourth flavor right now, but they're all pretty good. Give you just enough energy to get you up and going. So let me take a little swig and let's get started. All right, the big Monday Night Football. Everybody was excited about Aaron Rodgers and the new Jets. Everybody's excited about the return of Josh Allen in Buffalo. And I'd like to come out here, and I would love to tell you that I am utterly shocked at how bad Buffalo played last night. I can't believe at all how bad Josh Allen looked and how it's very unusual to see this team so poorly coached. I'd like to tell you that. And even though I'm a fan, which is sort of fanatic, I have a lot of objectivity when it comes to the teams I like and the teams I don't like. And the fact is I'm not surprised one bit at how bad Buffalo looked. I've been saying for 2 years now what I'm going to say. I just didn't have a podcast at the time because I didn't even know how to do one. But I'm going to tell you this right now. As a Buffalo Bills fan for 21, 22 years, 31 years I've been a Bills fan. 31. This team is not what most Bills fans think this team is. Josh Allen is very overrated at quarterback. I'm not saying that he sucks. And even if I do say that he's not good or somebody's a not good coach, it all comes from the perspective of treating them like the professional athlete they're supposed to be. If Josh Allen showed up in a 7-on-7 rec men's league, he would murder everybody. And he'd probably kill half of his own teammates because he throws the ball so hard. But the fact that he's being talked about as a top 5 NFL quarterback is fucking ridiculous. He's not a top 5 NFL quarterback. Sean McDermott is not a top 5 head coach. They both happen to have super talented teams that can win half the games they play on talent alone. But whenever they face adversity, most of the time they don't come out on the right end. And last night is another prime example of it. I want to get the elephant in the room out of the way when it comes to what happened with Aaron Rodgers. I think it's an absolute fucking travesty. And I don't know why that never happened to Tom Brady in all the years he played besides the one knee injury that he had in 07. It bothered the shit out of me every year that Tom Brady would come back and make it through the end of the year, what seemed to be flawlessly, but we all know that he had injuries. But Aaron Rodgers can't seem to catch a break. And I guess the Jets can't catch a break either because this kind of happened when they got Vinny Testaverde and they were going to have a great season with him. I think it was 99. And then he ended up, I think it was the same thing. I think he blew his Achilles. But that was a long time ago. Regardless, we're here in 2023. Rodgers goes out in the first series. That should have been game over. I know that New York has a good defense. And I know that Zach Wilson has made some improvements. But this shouldn't have been a game by the end of the third quarter. Buffalo should have worn out the defense of the Jets. The Jets shouldn't have been able to move the ball. And it was a game like that for a while, except for the fact that Josh Allen can't not turn the fucking ball over. Last year, they opened up in Los Angeles, and they crushed them. And while everybody was singing their praises and crowning them the champs before week 2, my point was they committed 4 turnovers. And you're not going to win a championship committing 4 turnovers. Yeah, but it's the Rams. Look how good they look. They still scored 42 points or whatever it was. Yeah, against a shitty team that isn't going to make you pay for your mistakes. And when you play teams that make you pay for your mistakes, stuff like this happens. So once again, Josh Allen is on pace to commit 68 turnovers. And he's a top 5 quarterback? No, he's not. And even though I said in the last podcast, doesn't matter what happens week 1, 2, or 3. I take it all with a grain of salt. The one thing that I do want to see, out of any team, is are they taking the shortcomings they had last year and improving on them? Are they taking what was cost them games last year and improving on it. And so far, they have fucking failed. This dude had 4 turnovers in week 1. 4 turnovers. And people want to give this dude the money bag? 4 turnovers. You can't do that, Josh Allen. You can't throw to Stephon Diggs when he's double covered and expect things to happen because you're afraid this guy might bitch at you in the huddle. Okay? You can't fumble a snap. Was it a little bit in a not perfect position? Sure. It wasn't over your head. It wasn't at your feet like what Daniel Jones had to deal with on the 5th or 6th play of the game when everything was looking good for them and then went straight downhill. This was an easily catchable ball that you just go right out of your hands and the other team gets it in fucking field goal range. You can't do that. You just can't be this team. And unfortunately, you paid a lot of money last year for Von Miller, and it looked good for 12 games. And you couldn't pick up anybody good in free agency. You're hoping that Kincaid, he's going to work out well. Osiris Torrance, he had a tough task last night. It's kind of hard to start your first game against Quinnen Williams. But he did all right. So hopefully it's one of those things where the rookies step up. But you don't have any big-name free agent pickups, and you think that you're going to come out and be the same team as last year and take things to the next level, and it's not going to happen. And every time Buffalo has a game where they either lose at the last second by a field goal or a walk-off touchdown, or they miss a field goal, or they miss a 4th down and 2, and the other team gets the ball and they can kneel. Sean McDermott always has but himself. He should have that look for himself and himself only, because it's his fucking fault. Okay? When your team and your quarterback make the same mistakes year after year after year after year, maybe you have to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, what am I doing wrong? Now, I did have a talk with a guy the other day. He saw me with my son on the football field, and he came over to help with a little bit of throwing mechanics, because it turns out he was a D1 quarterback that had a cup of coffee in the NFL, a couple of practice squad teams. His name is CJ. And he was saying that he thinks the problem in Buffalo is there's too many guys there that are just there to make money, and they don't care about putting in the effort to win. Well, guess what? It's still on McDermott, and it's still on Brandon Beane. But McDermott needs to communicate to Brandon Beane that these are the types of players that I want, guys that want to come here and fucking win. You know why the Patriots were always contenders for those 20 years? Because Belichick found undrafted free agents that would give their left nut and do anything to play one full season of successful football. Guys that wanted to win so bad, they didn't care what they had to do. And then as they had success, he would find veteran players who were at the top of the hill on the way down, slightly over the hill, or maybe even a little bit in their twilight, that hadn't won a championship, and said, we're going to bring these guys in here. And these guys who have played for a while are going to mentor the young guys, and they're going to hold a standard of this is how hard we have to fucking work to win a fucking championship in this league. And Buffalo doesn't have that. And that's your fault, Sean McDermott. And that's your fault, Brandon Beane. If that's the case with these guys, that they're not there to work hard, they're not going to study, they're not going to do what it takes to be successful, then fucking get rid of them. Because you're just going to have years and years and years of mediocrity and nothing but a pissed off fan base. That's why this podcast is called Eternally Disappointed. Because as a Bills fan, you're going to be nothing but disappointed year in and year out. So it's one of two things. It's either that you have a team that's ultra talented but doesn't want to work hard and do what it takes to win because they're just there to get money, or Sean McDermott is a poor coach. I have a feeling it's a little bit of both and not enough of either. Because you can't have a quarterback make the same mistakes that he was making rookie year 5 years into it and think that anything's going to be different. Josh Allen is a turnover machine. Josh Allen, and I'll give him credit, and I was telling my son last night when I was watching the game, there's a couple of plays and a couple of reads he makes and a couple of throws that he makes, and you're like, this is a big-time quarterback. That's a big-time quarterback play. That's a great read. These guys are on the same page. Saw it a mile away. And then he fucking throws it like he's passing it to C.J. Mosley. Mosley just drops it. And you're asking yourself, like, what do you see on that play? What are you looking at? How come you don't run out of bounds? You try to truck another guy to get a yard. It worked last night to a certain point, but eventually that's going to be more fumbles. That's going to be more turnovers, and that's what's going to kill this team. Now, once again, It's week one. Things always pan out. Maybe it's just growing pains for the season, and this is going to be like what Burrow had last year in his week one. But I honestly think that this is more of the norm for Josh Allen at Buffalo. Any team that they have more talent than, they're going to kick their ass. But any team that can match them 75% on talent and has at least decent coaching, they're going to beat them every time. They're going to beat Buffalo every time because Buffalo will implode. Buffalo will. You can't intercept a guy and then go get a 15 fucking yard penalty tacked on top of it because you're celebrating in his face. You know who never did that? The Patriots didn't do that. They would intercept the ball and celebrate and get back on the sideline and act like they had been there before. And for some reason, Buffalo just can't get that through. Either McDermott can't get it through to his team and he needs to be fired, or the team just doesn't let that message get through and they need to be released. Hey man, if you're not here for the common goal of winning a championship, we can send you to other teams. There are guys that will come in here and make the sacrifices that they need to get this team a championship. And you can go get your money somewhere else. You can go play for the Bears and get your money. And then nobody's going to care except people in Chicago what you do. But that's the problem I have with this team. I have a problem with sports media not calling out what it is because Brady's gone, Manning's been gone, it looks like Rodgers is gone already, and they need people to replace them to become the next superstars. Well, Mahomes is already there, and Burrow has proven himself more than Allen, and they need somebody else. They bump up Lamar, even though I don't think Lamar is as good as people say, but he's a super athletic guy, so it gives him a chance. And there's a few other people that are in there. But man, last night was Buffalo once again snatching defeat from the jaws of victory because they can't help themselves but stumble and trip over themselves right from the beginning. How do you have 3 interceptions? I get the Jets' defense is good. I understand the Jets' defense is good. But you're playing Zach Wilson. Like, you lost to the Jets again, and they didn't even have their starting quarterback. This game should have been over by the middle of the third quarter. But because Buffalo is an idiotic team that's undisciplined and can't stop turning the ball over, they're just going to let guys hang around until an overtime punt return puts the game away. It's absolute nonsense. It's absolute garbage that this team is considered a Super Bowl contender. It's absolute garbage that Josh Allen is considered a top 5 quarterback. I think they should trade him. They should trade him. They should draft somebody young and surround them with talent like what they did with what Cincinnati did with Burrow. Or find a veteran quarterback who's going to be cheap because he wants to win a title and he could be a game manager, and once again surround him with talent, and they'll win a lot more games than having a guy that all you hear about is he's a top 5 quarterback go out there and throw into double coverage or throw right at defenders because he's staring down the tight end, and then sit there and wonder why, like, oh, I wonder why we lost this game. You lost the game because you lost it. The other team didn't beat you. You kicked yourself in your own ass, and this is what came of it, and it's garbage. Once again, the non-emotional side of me is going to talk about how it's week 1. Things need to play out. Everybody needs to relax. And it's not just this. It's not just what happened last night with Buffalo. There's a lot of teams that looked like they came out in week 1 unprepared. I have no idea because I don't think Mike McCarthy has ever been that great of an NFL coach, but I might have to rethink my stance. Like, Dallas comes out every week 1 looking like dynamite, looking like they've been waiting for this moment. This is their Sean Strickland moment against Izzy. Even last year when they lost to Tampa, they played a lot better than people gave them credit for. It's just Tampa's defense is on fire at the time. But Dallas comes out every week 1 and looks like $1 trillion, even though most of the time week 1 they play the Giants, and we all know the Giants suck. But look at the Giants. They looked like they hadn't prepared once in the offseason. The Bengals didn't look like they prepared at all. The Titans really didn't look like they prepared well at all. And Ryan Tannehill was the guy that I defended year in and year out, saying when he has talent around him, he's a 33 touchdown to 7 interception quarterback. He looked like complete shit the other day. But guess what? Ryan Tannehill and Josh Allen had the same amount of interceptions this week. So what does that tell you about those guys? It's absolute garbage. absolute every year it seems like week one and football in general just moves down a notch. It's not quite that good. These guys aren't playing at the same level as teams were 10, 15 years ago. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to coaching. I live in a hotbed of football. I live in South Florida, where we produce more high-level NFL players than anywhere in the country. And I'll walk around and watch kids my age playing tackle football not being taught how to tackle properly, quarterbacks not being taught how to hold the ball well, and coaches who don't know what they're doing telling these guys just try harder or do better instead of giving them constructive fucking criticism. And it bothers the shit out of me. And you can see it showing up in the league. What we had last night from Buffalo was absolute garbage. And anybody that's a Buffalo Bills fan that still thinks Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback should be fucking... No, the ice cream truck is outside. I was wondering what I was hearing. Anybody that's a Buffalo fan that thinks Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback is delusional. They're just lying to themselves because they're a fan and they can't take the fan part out and be objective about this team. This team is not going to go anywhere. They looked like the 4th best team in the division last night, and people think they're a Super Bowl contender. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's the reason I started this podcast is to explain to people what it's like to be a Bills fan, what it's like to watch Doug Flutie go for an entire season making the team great, and because the idiot owner wants Rob Johnson to start, they're barely beating Tennessee, and then on a forward fucking lateral, they lose the game. It's stuff like that. It's stuff like Josh Allen making stupid plays, or squib kicking the ball to the most explosive offense with 13 seconds left, not thinking their kicker, who has a leg, is going to make a kick if they gain 15 yards. It's stuff like this that pisses me off and pisses Bills fans off. But the difference is I have the objectivity to look Bills fans in the eye and say, these guys aren't the team that you think they are. And they're not going to be the team that you think they're going to be unless they make some major fucking changes. I'm the guy that's sitting here saying that, and Bills fans are upset about it. Well, we move on to next week. It was just one game. We've got some UFC coming up this weekend. I'm really interested in the rematch between Grasso and Shevchenko. I think the first fight, Shevchenko took her lightly because she was doing things that you can get away with in sparring against partners that aren't on your level. And I think that's what ultimately led her. I think when she got taken down, she wasn't ready for the level of grappling that Grasso had. And sometimes when you're either training with somebody or competing against them, and you in your mind, you're like, their grappling level is right here, and you get on the ground and you think you only have to put out this much and they're really here, it's a surprise. And later in a fight when you're tired, sometimes you just can't do it. And kudos to Grasso. She won fair and square. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't just a lucky punch. It wasn't a Leon Edwards head kick after getting beat up for 4.5 rounds. It was a straight, hey man, I'm here, I'm game, I can fight too. So it's going to be an interesting rematch. I don't really have an opinion on it, who I think is going to win, because I can make arguments for both of them. I've always been a Shevchenko fan, so I will root for her, but it's always nice to see new blood in the division because it does open up so many different matchups, and especially now that Nunes is retired, it'd be interesting to see Shevchenko at 135, even though I think she's undersized. She looks closer to a 15-pounder than a 135er, but she had a ton of success at 135. You could argue she beat Nunes the second time they fought. She beat Holly Holm. She finished Juliana Pena, but that's because Juliana Pena is a garbage fighter. So that's a completely different story. But nonetheless, there's my thoughts on the Buffalo Bills snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And we'll see you after the fights on Saturday. Until then, go out, get some rainstorm, and kick somebody's ass.